Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. I am Oji Akpi.
And I'm Tundu Abiola. The United Kingdom and Nigeria have maintained an eventful relationship for over 200 years, a relationship which crystallized into the amalgamation and emergence of Nigeria as a united entity in 1914. That relationship took a new turn on October 1st, 1960, when Nigeria attained political independence from the British. However, both countries have continued to enjoy each other's company in the international community, complementing each other in the areas of politics, economic cooperation, and diplomacy. It is that last bit that will engage us for some time this morning as we host once again on this program Laure Beaufils, the British Deputy High Commissioner to Nigeria in the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Laure, who is spending her last full month in Nigeria, has spent 2 years and 4 months here, having been posted from Rwanda in February 2017. Welcome to the program, Laure. So nice to have you back.
Thank you. It's great to be here again. Thank you very much.
So I'd like you to take a walk down memory lane for the past 2 years and 4 months.
Yeah.
What was your mission here, and how far have you gone in actualizing it?
Fantastic. Thank you, and thank you for having me here. Well, I think when I arrived in February 2017, my mission was to really show to the people of Nigeria and in Lagos and the Southwest in particular that the UK is here, it's here to stay, it's a strong and committed partner to Nigeria on a wide variety of fronts. So obviously here in the Southwest, there's a really strong emphasis on business and commercial relationships, and my objective there was to ensure that our trade, our bilateral trade, went from strength to strength, that there were more opportunities for investments into Nigeria, export to Nigeria, job creation here and in the UK in a win-win way, if you like. So that was clear, but there are so many other opportunities beyond trade on culture, creativity. We wanted to strengthen the bridge between the people of Nigeria and the people of the UK, because that relationship, as you rightly highlighted, is incredibly strong. And where you have so much talent and creativity and entrepreneurship in Nigeria, we do as well. And we want to strengthen partnerships and initiatives that bring our people together.
Right, and so the last time you were on the show, you did mention that as well. You mentioned about, doubling the bilateral trade, and then you also said that you have a team here that's working on an education program, IT beyond oil. Talk to us about that. Like, what are the specifics, and what is this team, and when are they really coming in place?
Fantastic, and the really exciting thing is that actually that team is growing and growing significantly. And I think that's a testament to quite how important Nigeria is to the UK, because the whole of our team, both across Abuja and Lagos, is growing significantly. So here on the business side in particular, we are supporting bilateral trade, but we're doing a lot more to now focus on investments into Nigeria. For example, we've got specific programs on education, tertiary education, vocational education. We've got programs that we call Future Cities, for example, on how do we support environmentally sustainable urbanization. We've got programs on digital access and technology. All of this is about trying to support innovation, entrepreneurship, and job creation in Nigeria in a way that, again, works for both of our countries. So you can expect to see a lot more from us on these areas in the years to come as our teams become even more active and embedded and really affecting change on the ground.
I want to go to the recent visit of Jeremy Hunt, the British Foreign Secretary, who we must commend for going to Maiduguri in spite of the security challenges. Can we talk about how the British government is supporting Nigeria in the fight against Boko Haram?
Yes, absolutely. And I think his going to Maiduguri was a testament to quite how important this is, again, for our government and for him personally. And we are absolutely committed to working with Nigeria to address extremism and to put a stop to it across the region. And so we've been doing a lot, and we will continue to do that. And in fact, we are going to do more and more in that space. We've already got a very strong package of support that covers security, military, humanitarian development. And in military in particular, we've been working with 30,000 troops from Nigeria, providing training and providing capacity development. And of course, on the humanitarian side, there's such an important need with 23,000 people killed and millions displaced. And we've got a package of support there, £300 million over 5 years to support people that are directly affected from the crisis in humanitarian camps and otherwise.
What about intelligence? That's a major component in the fight. How's the British government supporting us in that regard? And also, how can Nigeria better harness the intelligence that we're able to get from, international support?
So intelligence is undoubtedly part of the package, and it is a really strong collaboration that exists in that space. And as I said, the Foreign Secretary is committed to doing more, and I think those conversations are ongoing. It is a priority for us. We've got a security and defense partnership that was signed when the Prime Minister came here in Nigeria in August 2018, and there'll be another meeting of the security and defense partnership later this year, possibly in October in London. So these are really important priorities, and the absolute determined Foreign Secretary that you saw that wants to take this forward.
All right, so you're leaving.
Sadly, yes, very, very sadly.
So how do you feel about, leaving, and what would you miss the most in Nigeria?
I feel personally very sad about leaving because I've been incredibly happy here. My family's been incredibly happy here, and it's been a fabulous, fabulous adventure. I feel honestly incredibly proud and privileged to have served here in Nigeria, and the people of Nigeria are undoubtedly what I will miss the most. I had no idea until I landed here quite how much of a fit there would be with the people, and I find them incredibly welcoming, sassy, funny, resilient, engaging, ambitious for themselves and their communities, entrepreneurial. They are. I know I shouldn't generalize, of course, but it's been an extraordinary experience. I feel proud looking back at the last 2.5 years of what we've accomplished. I think it's a really exciting time for the relationship between the UK and Nigeria. And I'm really delighted that I've got a good successor that I will be handing over to. And I know she's full of energy and ambition in terms of the relationship and the partnership as well. So for me, that fills me with joy and confidence to know that actually we're going to carry on building and going from strength to strength. We were just discussing before we came on air saying that there is sometimes a perception that the UK is not as present as it used to be. And while that may have been true 5-10 years ago, I think that's definitely shifted recently. And we mentioned the Foreign Secretary, yes. But of course, the Prime Minister was here. In my 2.5 years, I also saw the Prince of Wales. I saw another Foreign Secretary, Development Secretary, Defense Secretary. The eye of the UK is very much on Nigeria, and some of our top talent is coming here. So it's going to be a really exciting time for my successor in Lagos and the new High Commissioner who arrived in Abuja in November 2018. She's here to stay, and she's going to continue to take us from strength to strength.
I also read a lovely blog post that you wrote about Nigeria and all the misconceptions that exist, that people always get the wrong idea. So thank you for that. That was really lovely.
Really good to hear that. Really, really good to hear that.
I think it's so true. I mean, sadly, Nigeria sometimes still carries a bad name, and I think that's just a lack of communication about the wonderful things about Nigeria. And now I intend to be one of Nigeria's best advocates and champion when I travel across the world. That said, I think it's important, while we need to bust the myths that are not true, to also face the challenges in straight up and not have rose-tinted glasses. So there are real challenges, and they're really, really important and need to be addressed. But there are so many very wonderful things that we also need to celebrate and encourage and highlight.
Now, you were prolific in your official role, but I also get a sense that there were some personal projects that you undertook. So I want to ask you, what is your greatest achievement personally while you were in Nigeria, and also that of your team?
Gosh, that's a really tricky question. But you're right. I mean, a lot of what I've done was born out of passion for some of my values, and in fact, the values that we share across the UK and Nigeria, and some of the things that I personally wanted to champion and put all of my backing and energy behind. And I think some of the things that people tell me I've done in particular are around women's rights, the empowerment of women and girls, speaking about that, raising awareness around challenges like violence, for example, and environment and climate issues, which are another massively important area, which I think we don't speak about enough. And we know that it affects so much of the country in particular, and we really need to raise awareness around that and think about what is our individual responsibility in that space, and what do we want elected leaders to do. So, we speak a lot about conflict in Nigeria and the Middle Belt, and sometimes there's a bit of a shorthand understanding that it's religious drivers that determine the conflict. Well, of course, it's so much more than that. And we know that while religion plays a part, there's so much about environmental degradation, climate change, desertification, land rights. And I'm really pleased that we've started the conversation on that. And in fact, the Foreign Secretary, when he came, also held a meeting around that. So these are areas of particular passion. And looking back, I'm glad that I've invested so much of myself.
Yeah.
I should say the reason I felt so passionate and so energetic is because I've been energized by the country and by the people that I've met. So it's been a two-way thing.
And what would you say was your most challenging assignment while you were in Nigeria?
Gosh, that's a really, really difficult one. I think everything's been a bit challenging at times because things are sometimes difficult to do and deliver, and sometimes there's just so much that needs doing, and I think prioritizing and focusing and getting results can sometimes take a while. So I think for me, the greatest challenge has been trying to focus, trying to ensure that we have the right teams to deliver on our platform, and also just making sure that we set long-term programs in train that have real impact.
Can you tell us about the UK-Nigeria Economic Development Forum?
Yes, thank you. So the Economic Development Forum was launched by Prime Minister Theresa May and President Buhari in May 2018 when the Prime Minister came. And the idea there is to have a ministerial forum that meets on a regular basis to address what are the barriers to our bilateral trade and to really grip them in a very concrete fashion. It's an initiative rather than a one-off event, looking at non-trade barriers in particular. So it was fantastic that when the Foreign Secretary came just a couple of weeks ago, he met with the Vice President. The Vice President chaired the Economic Development Forum, and there was the Minister of Trade and Industry as well. And that was fantastic because we were able to highlight some very concrete barriers to trade and to already kind of grab those low-hanging fruits and make progress. So we're already determining what are the obstacles and taking policy decisions to change those obstacles. So for example, on air freight, we've been able to change air freight regulations that enabled greater cargo access from both Lagos and Abuja into the UK, trebling, in fact, the cargo access, which will increase exports to the UK from Nigeria. And these are very simple, concrete initiatives that we're taking to make sure that our trade goes from strength to strength.
Another initiative I thought was really interesting that occurred, well, it was signed when the Foreign Secretary was here, is regarding transport and contactless card technology. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so there was an event when the Foreign Secretary was here, which was around tech, and that's fantastic because the Foreign Secretary himself used to be a tech entrepreneur, and so he has a particular passion in this space. And for us, this is an extremely exciting area because there's so much happening in Nigeria and again in the UK, and so we think this is one of the very many areas where we have a comparative advantage. And so it was wonderful to be able to witness the signature of this deal between Interswitch, an incredibly innovative Nigerian company, and Boko, a really strong British company as well, about oyster-like transport cards, which can be used in buses in Nigeria and the like. And I think this is an example where British technology can really transform businesses in Nigeria and lead to growth of businesses and job creation here.
Can you explain what Oyster cards are?
Yes, I apologize. Oyster cards are little plastic cards that we use in our underground system that we call the Tube in the UK, in London. And you just tap the card and you get to walk in because it's got a SIM that basically can determine how much money you've got on the card. And so the idea is to have these cards now in buses in Nigeria so that you don't have to pay cash to the driver and waste time, and also just make sure that there's no cash in the bus. And then everyone has a little card, they tap, they recharge it as they go, and it really makes public transport so much easier and profitable ultimately.
I wanted to talk about something that is happening now in Nigeria. Tensions are rising with the immigration policies. Currently the U.S. have scrapped the drop box service, which is the service in there where you can, just leave your passport and have your visa replaced if you've been to America over a period of time. I'd like to know your opinion on that. And is there anything that might be happening like that with the British Embassy in Nigeria?
Yeah, we have no plans to change our visa policy, rest assured. We celebrate the flow of people from Nigeria to the UK and vice versa, and we're really delighted to be able to host Nigerians in the UK. We are proud to have so many Nigerian students in schools in the UK or universities in the UK, and some of our great talent, working in the City of London or otherwise, are Nigerians. So this is something really positive. Of course, we have to be careful because, sadly, a very small minority of people from Nigeria, as elsewhere, sometimes abuses the terms of their visa conditions and overstays. So, as you know, that's why our visa assessors are very careful, and that's why I encourage your viewers to really, when they put in visa applications, ensure that they're incredibly thorough in their application, because assessors will triangulate information, and what they're looking for is really evidence that individuals that apply have regular sources of income. So they're not looking for sponsors. And I think we hear a lot of people say, oh, but I'm incredibly wealthy and I'm sponsoring this person, so why was that visa turned down? It's because it's not about sponsorship, it's about the individual's personal circumstances.
Well, that's a great point to note, because a lot is made of sponsors.
Yeah. And the reason behind that is because, so the sponsor could sponsor you for your 1-week visa for the sake of argument, but then ultimately you might still have an incentive to overstay. So we're not only looking at how are you going to support yourself for that 1 week, we're looking at what happens after that 1 week.
You recently met with some of the candidates from the 2019 elections. What was your take on that whole process?
Well, I think there were some really positive things and some things that could have been better. So, on the positive, I think this 2019 election was strong when it came to debates, substantive debates, having more issues-based politics, a better understanding of what candidates stood for and what were their manifestos. And I think this is something that we must applaud and encourage. And indeed, that means that it was less about individuals and perhaps more about policies. And frankly, that's the first step to ensuring that then politics becomes more about issues and ultimately accountability. That said, when you look at the lead up to the elections and election days, there were lots of irregularities, as you know full well, and there was a lot of violence and ultimately death. And I think there can be no justification for death and violence in the context of elections. And it's got to be something that collectively we seek to improve and address, and we need to learn those lessons to ensure that in 2023 we don't have those irregularities and that level of violence. And I think it's possible, but I don't think it's something that will happen in 2023. I think that it starts right now.
Well, let's touch a little bit on Brexit. What's your opinion on Prime Minister's departure, her departure plans? What do you predict? What do you see? Talk to us about that.
So in terms of her departure plan, as you know, she met with a committee of senior members of the Conservative Party this week, and she said to them that she would announce the timetable for her departure after the vote on the withdrawal agreement bill, which is a bill which is intended to set out what Brexit will look like, essentially, and it's due to be put to Parliament the week of the 3rd of June. And she has said that on the back of that, she will set out a timetable for her departure. So I think that means that there's an acknowledgement she will go. She will possibly go over the course of the summer. And we know that there have been already some members of the Conservative Party that have expressed interest in the role. So that's on her specifically. On Brexit, I can't deny that it's been a messy process. If you look at the positive side of that, that is the sign of a strong democracy, that people across the political divide in Parliament are able to disagree, are able to challenge themselves in a civil fashion, even though at times it can feel a little bit tense and uncivil. But ultimately, using the power of arguments, there have been endless debates about what would be the right thing for the UK and what would be best for British people. And we're not at the end. We haven't yet been able to agree. because Parliament includes so many different voices from different perspectives, and I think that's healthy. But we do acknowledge that business in particular does need some certainty.
Yes.
And I know that that's why the Prime Minister in particular is determined to move as quickly as she can to get a decision, move to implementation, and provide that clarity for the people of the UK, for our international partners, for the EU, and certainly for business as well.
Post-Brexit, Britain is going to have a completely different relationship with other world member states. What is the relationship going to be like with Nigeria in the next few years?
You know, as I said at the outset, the relationship is going to go from strength to strength. We are investing in the country. We have, in fact, Africa Investment Summit that the Prime Minister announced in August. We've now got a date for that. That's going to be the 20th of January 2019. It was just announced in Parliament this week.
20th of January?
2020, apologies. Thank you, because that would have been a bit short.
Okay, that happened already.
Exactly.
Where were we?
You didn't miss it.
Okay, good.
So 20th of January 2020 in London, focusing on how do we secure additional investments into the continent. The Prime Minister made a commitment that we would become the first G7 investor in Africa by 2022. We're determined to make that happen. We've got our Development Finance Institute called CDC that has committed to spend an extra £3.5 billion across the region in the next 4 years. We've got businesses and the City of London that are incredibly excited about Africa. So there is a huge focus. And there's a particular interest in Nigeria, given the size of the market and the massive opportunities that we know exist there. So, you know, from a Brexit trade perspective, I think we can expect to see continued growth in our trade and continued bilateral cooperation.
Okay. I think that you've, you know...
Oh, I have one,
you have one more.
What will you miss about Nigeria? Is the first question. And secondly, which one of our dishes will you miss? And possibly attempt to recreate?
Attempts to recreate is going to be difficult because I have tried my hand at cooking and it was not a tasty affair. Let me reassure you. But I will miss so many wonderful things. As I said, the people first and foremost. I will miss the tempo, the pace, the craziness of Lagos, the things that, you know, get under your skin and at times you just are grumpy about, but you learn to love, you know, the chaos and really the wonderful, wonderful opportunities that have existed here. The diversity of the people is something that will stay in my heart forever. And, you know, people say Nigeria gets under your skin. I am the first-hand proof that has been the case, and I know my husband and my children feel the same way. So we'll be very, very sad to go, but one thing is for sure, and that's that we will come back. And I'm not sure in what capacity, but I know we will come back, and we will be looking out to see what happens in the country. And the beauty of it is that there are Nigerians across the world as well, so we'll be reconnecting with Nigeria wherever we are.
Well,
we'll be delighted to have you back.
The dish.
Well, I've got to say, probably a combination of suya. I mean, who doesn't love suya? Jollof rice, clearly the best in the world.
Jollof rice. It is. Is it better than Ghana?
Come on.
Thank you for that.
And perhaps fried plantain, I think, is my third favorite.
Oh, my favorites.
I've got good taste,
You
haven't I?
definitely have good taste.
Okay, but can you tell us where you're going?
I'm going to Jordan in the Middle East, so quite a significant change for me. First time living in the Middle East. I'm looking forward to the new adventure, of course. It's going to be really, really exciting for me, but I will undoubtedly miss Africa because this is my third posting in Africa, which is why I didn't intend to come back.
Thank you so much
for
coming
having
this
me.
morning and for all the work that you did in the last 2.5 years.
Thank you so much.
Well,
That means
have
a
a
lot to me.
safe trip and enjoy Jordan.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Bye-bye.